Right then, mate, how are you?
Fantastic. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, sorry, I probably tripped you up. I don't do an intro on this show. We just start talking because I just think it's completely unnecessary. So if you are listening and you want an intro, welcome to the Marks podcast. I'm joined this time with Gabe. Gabe Ripley. I should use your full name because I presume everybody would know you, but that's not fair. And that's about as much of an intro as I'm going to do. You know?
Perfect. There's enough out there. People could always do the Google, and we could get. I'm always down to get right into it.
Well, one of the suggestions I had with the first couple of episodes was, could all the stuff that you talk about and the people that you're talking to, can you put links to them in the description? So that's exactly what I'm going to do. So that's my seamless way of going. If there's anything that you missed or you want to find out more about Gabe or any of the many things that he does, simply look in the description and I'll have put all the links there. And if I haven't, you can send me a message on Instagram and I will make sure I've done it, you know. Because, I'm literally making this stuff up as I go along, mate,
Improvisation is...
Not one of my talents, improv. Come on then, let's get on with this. I've got questions for you, mate. My first one is, as a self-confessed geek, now let me just explain this, that I've known Gabe for... I was trying to work this out the other day. I think I've known you for about 15 years now.
That sounds about right. I was trying to figure it out myself.
I'm thinking it was around 2015, 2016 that I came to Paradise for the first time. So I think it's around then. But and we kind of bonded later when we were chatting about code and all kinds of like super geeky things. Gabe does a lot more of it than I do, but there's, web design and development and things like that. And so what I wanted to ask you as my first question is, how does a self-confessed geek, and my favourite geek in the world of tattooing, by the way, how did you end up in the world of tattooing?
Trading out for tattoos that I couldn't afford. So in the, mid-90s, late 90s. So I guess I got my first tattoo in 1992. I went into New Haven and went to the biker shop, and I couldn't afford the parrot. I wanted to get the parrot, but it was $175, but I could afford the $60 dove. So I got a dove on my ankle, and I thought I was fucking tough. Like, I'm tattooed. I got a dove on my ankle. And but I was still in high school, right? Anyways, so I got a couple of bad tattoos, and then I kind of started seeking out. I started to realize, oh wait, there's actually bad tattooers and good tattooers. They're not all the same. I was 17 at the time, 18 at the time, so I was figuring it out. But then after flash forward a couple of years, I found a good tattooer. Didn't quite have the dough. Grew up relatively white trash. Now a computer geek, right? So I was able to program. And this is about the time when I started to program for money. And so then I realized I had a valuable skill. Programming computers. For corporations and shit was a lot of money for white trash. And so when I came back to get tattooed, I got a bad cover up, or not a bad cover up, but he wanted $500 for the cover up to cover up the dove and the parrot that I eventually got from another crappy tattooer. And I was like, I don't have $500. I got $375. And he's like, fuck it, we'll do it. And but like his heart wasn't into it, and you could tell. And so the next time I went back, I was like, how about I trade some computer work that's worth $150 an hour, and you could do some tattoos on me.
So 92, that would have been, that's going to be around, what, the first .com boom, or is that a little early at that point?
We weren't websites then, so that's when I was just going in and I got my first tattoo. I started working with Darkside probably 96, 95, 96. In 92, I was logging into the computer. I kind of joked that I started programming in BASIC around the War Games movie, which is like 84. I was 10, but I was still programming games. And then I hope to go out programming anti-war games.
Yeah, that would be really great, right? Yeah, it's funny because around that time, I remember when I first saw that computers were built from code and there was this stuff that you had to type into it and it made stuff happen. Me and some of my friends used to sneak into the local Tandy store,
Yeah.
yeah, and they had a computer there where you could just type things, and I used to go in and show my friends that I'd learnt this really basic command of like, it would just say like Big Willies or something like that, and then you had to just hit return and go run Big Willies again and again, and there was some kind of repeat prompt that I'd learned, and it just wrote Big Willies all over the screen in green.
The whole screen would just repeat.
Yeah, it just keeps repeating. My friends were impressed with it, but we were all about 11 or 12 at the time.
Yeah, exactly. It was, like I said, I kind of grew up relatively, unsafe and, crazy-ish, household. The computer, you could plug it in, and then, to your point, like, I would be programming. They had magazines, and so there'd be like, I don't know, 15 pages of basic code. And if you programmed out everything exactly the way that they give it to you in the magazine, you could play Pong. And, it was very controlled. So it's like, oh man, I could like plug in the instructions and it does the, character by character. Don't fuck it up. But then you get to play games and shit.
Yeah, it's almost like free games. If you're prepared to put in the 3,000 lines of code, you can play Pong,
And what else? I was like a Zork. Was it one of those other games, like some of the text-based games?
Yeah, where you're in a room, it's a dark room, there's a cake. Do you eat the cake or leave the room? It was that kind of choice-based thing, wasn't it? I used to love those games, man. They were funny, Look at us showing our age.
Yeah, right. But you know what? It's amazing. When I'm, so like a week ago, I was talking to another geek here, programmer, nothing to do with tattooing, but I was showing him kind of how the AI is like doing stuff, and when the AI is like explaining what it's doing, and some of it's very Zork like, it's very like old text based game like, because it's like, it's very much telling you a story about what it's thinking from a computer perspective. We were both thinking how it's eerily similar.
Yeah, I've, as you know, we've talked about it at great length. I've got a love-hate relationship with AI at the moment. In that I literally love some of it and hate other parts of it, and then mostly the bad implementation of it. So I was, I'm using, for any of you out there listening, I'm using a new piece of technology that I haven't used before. And so I've had to ask for help a couple of times with the AI chatbot that they use on this particular platform. And it has driven me to distraction, because it all it does is read the manual to you. And it's like, I know that, but I need to ask you another question. And you have to tell it. I'm sick of having to say, transfer to a human. Can you please stop telling me the contents of the manual? But I'm sure once people figure out a better implementation of that, where it understands that I can't answer this question, so I better put you through to somebody who can, because clearly this is a human required thing.
They solve that, right? Like the right user interface people have the chat AI / search bar, and then underneath it, knowledge base. Click here if you want to like just get to the shit.
Oh, okay. So it really, so at the moment, it's like, I imagine, there's a lot of people just doing the quickest, cheapest, just plug it in, the best you can do. As that becomes, less of a thing and people spending a little bit more time doing that kind of thing, I'm hoping that that's going to become less infuriating, because being a bit older, when I look at the AI chatbot popping up, in my head, all I ever see is Clippy from Windows 95, who drove me mad.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
I do. Well, I'm thinking, I try to, when we're doing some of the voice AI stuff, and soon, like I have video versions of myself, that will talk to you, it's very max headroomy. I'm like, oh man.
Now, if you could make it be like Max Headroom, I'll have that version of you on the show, and I'll do a special video episode where you and I can both be like Max Headroom. That would be hilarious.
I tried to put in your video because you had created the really awesome, a talk for Paradise, and I tried to put that in and start to send you a thank you in, using that as the source. You'll be happy to know, or at least I didn't pay enough. They were like, yeah, you don't have the rights to his, his image. You can't make stuff up.
That's good. Well, the other thing is, if you'd have got any further, you'd have found out that, unfortunately, my accent is completely unintelligible to AI. It does all kinds of crazy stuff with subtitles for me. It just doesn't understand a word I say. I've just done one with another friend of mine from. I'm in the. I'm in just south of a city called Birmingham, home of metal and all that sort of stuff. You'll have probably heard of it recently because
a little bit.
Yeah, because of Black Sabbath and poor old Ozzy, God rest him.
Crazy changing the time.
But I was talking to another artist from Birmingham, and one of the things that I took great pleasure in, I didn't put them out in the end, was looking at the subtitles of what it thought we said as we were chatting, because it had because obviously if you get two people, I don't know if this must be the same in the US, but if you get two people from the same area, do their American accents become more like their accents, do you think? I mean, because that certainly happens in England. If you get two of us together from the same area, we become unintelligible very quickly.
America's big, so there's definitely, some spots, but it's not like over there, man. Like I go, there's places, Scotland or, I'm like, oh my gosh, I know this is technically the same language, but I'd have to spend another week here to fully grasp it.
Yeah, I mean, I get lost. I mean, I'm married to a Scottish woman, and I still get lost with Scottish accents all the time. It's just it's its own other thing, that is, and God bless them. So did you do? On your way up, I wanted to ask you about this because I did a lot early doors for people. I was actually working with bands at the time, but so you'd have started out coding and building websites. Did you ever do any of that MySpace reskinning that everybody seemed to want you to do for about 5 minutes when MySpace was massive?
Not really. For the most part, I was like a real programmer. Maybe not a real programmer, but I was scripting video games, for like children's games. And then I was also able to do, like touchscreen kiosks for the Epcot Center. So this would be like in '95. Solidly, I had like a freelance career. I was like, driving motorcycles around the country, in the middle of, and this is when I started actually getting the tattoos from Sean. And so we'd create a touchscreen kiosk for the Epcot Center, or I would. And then I'd come back to the Connecticut, and then I'd make the software, and then he created a giant, it was like a fucking 9 foot tall, maybe it was 8.5. It was probably 8 foot tall. It's probably 7 foot 3/4 of an inch. So like just fit in an 8 foot ceiling or something. It was probably perfectly sized, but it was a giant tiki mask, with a touch screen, screen in it. And I guess this was probably 1999, 2000, 2001-ish. It's a long time ago, so it gets blurry. But what I remember is going into Hell City, and there was this giant tiki mask, and then you could you could do all the things you could do on your phone now, but this was a long time ago. And you know what I was thinking? I was like, man, I'm going to these conventions right now. I don't have a touchscreen kiosk in front of my booth. That shit was awesome then. It's still awesome now.
Yeah. So what, Macromedia Director, something like that?
So it was Macromedia Director, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So for all you guys that are pre this, before there was only Adobe doing all this sort of stuff, there was a lovely little company called Macromedia that made brilliant pieces of software like Flash, Director, Dreamweaver was one of theirs, and my personal favourite was Freehand, which was my preferred vector app at the time. And then
it was a vector base.
It was such a beautiful program, and then Adobe bought it and killed it, from what I can tell. Because you can't get it anymore.
Yeah, Director was a real great combination of animation software and like object-oriented programming. There was real object-oriented programming in there, but it was more like object-oriented scripting. So I was able to dig in, and but yeah, all those original. We did like video poker, and so there was the Dark Side video poker, and what was it? Color Bomb, I think is what Joey Cap's shop was in, and we would take that same software and put them on CD-ROMs.
Yeah, I was going to say that's what I used it for. I would, with the bands I was working with, I would put the making of the album up on, onto the CD for them, and you'd have this interactive CD that I was incredibly excited about. That you could put it in a CD player and it played music, but if you put it in a computer, it became this behind the scenes thing with like the lyric sheets and photos from the sessions and stuff like that. And I found it fascinating.
Some very compressed videos.
Yeah, I mean, yes, some very, they look like they're filmed on a potato. You know.
Absolutely. So that was right around the time. So I was working on Duck Music. Um, and then I had to, I guess it was when my daughter was, not being born, but when she was, she got conceived, and it was like, oh shit, I got to make a living. But I was doing enhanced CDs so that you could share the music on Napster all you wanted, but when you bought the CD, you got the key to the fan club. And so it would have the tour dates, it would have special access to news that no one else would have access to. And I helped. It was pretty cool. I worked with a couple of bands, did a couple of tours. But when shit got serious, okay, I'm either gonna get like a job type job, which isn't bad for a programmer, but it was really like, do I do tattoos or do I do music? And tattoos, it was very clear. It was like, all it really takes is one person and to be awesome and nice. And then, if you have really awesome artwork and really awesome tattoos and you can tell a good story, then people look at it online. Like I could help a lot of eyeballs get to it. And that actually turns into, clients and money and stuff. And, with bands, man, I don't need to tell you, it's like, you can affect a lot of people if you can figure out how to do it at scale, but you gotta convince 3 to like 8 people to like trounce around the countryside for fucking 6 months or 8 months at a time, and it's a tremendous amount of energy to try to make work. And so anyway, so I picked tattoos, and that's in the mid '90s, late '90s, I started focusing on doing computer work and freelance work for the evil corporations, Honda, Epcot Center, etc. And then coming back and using that money to work for for tattooers.
Well, that's almost exactly why I made that decision myself. Was the music industry that I was working in? There was just never any money in it, and like you say, I want to make the album, but you got to convince all 5 members of the band and the manager and the label that you're the right guy to do the job, and it just became tedious after a little while. And the amount of times you get halfway through a project and it'd be clear that you're not going to get paid because the band didn't get the advance they thought they were going to get, and so in the end, I went and worked for Evil Corpse as well as a graphic designer and marketeer, and that's how I ended up sidestepping it and then finding my way back into making art and being a tattooist. It's funny these journeys that we have. We all end up here eventually.
Well, I think it's kind of right, but like, so we've known a lot of illustrator types, right? Like that try to get into tattooing, for the money, but then all of a sudden, like, wait a minute, like this is very weird. Like I'm not like painting in my, basement at 2:00 in the morning listening to my music. I have to like be here at 2:00 in the afternoon, like tattooing art on a person. I've just seen a lot of. There's more illustrators now that are being able to cross the line and get into tattooing. They love tattooing enough, but it's because they love tattooing. I guess it's funny. I guess maybe what you said, like that, it feels like often the only people that end up tattooing are the people that really can't do much else other than tattooing.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. But then I think I think a lot of us, or certainly my observation anyway, is that a lot of us end up here like that because it's one of the few skills that we have, and we have meager finances and connections to business and all of that. It's just not really available. But then I think the ones that excel and get good and all of that sort of stuff are the people that really, really fall in love with it. And for some people, I guess they fall in love with it before they start. And then some people like myself, you fall in love with it while you're doing it. It literally gets under your skin. I mean, I think it's one of those jobs. I don't think I quite realised what tattooing was all about until I'd been doing it for about 5 years when the penny started to drop. It's like, hang on a minute, this is quite different of a world to me. Did you experience that? Did you have preconceived ideas that changed?
Yeah. But I don't tattoo, right? So I am a client, and I've been working in it for now probably 25 years, relatively exclusively. But I don't actually do the tattoos. But like for me, it's the as I was starting to like hang out at the tattoo shop, right? And I wasn't just a normal client. I was working doing the computer stuff and getting better tattoos I couldn't really afford, right? But I could trade out for really valuable stuff. I was, it was a lot of fun. It was a great ride, right? But what I was observing was the clients, they'd be getting their tattoos and they'd walk out, with their chest puffed out or feeling, they were, they were prettier, and I was like, in my mind, I'm like, it's just tattoos, man. They're all skin deep. You're not any different now than you were then, right? And flash forward a couple of years though, and they were actually becoming better people, right? And I was like, oh wait a minute, I feel like a better person, oh wait, I was like, doing my version of, I feel better about myself. And in many ways, because I was starting to feel better about myself because of the colorful bird tattoos, I was able to become a better, version of myself. And so for me, that's really where, like, tattooing is, it's not necessarily, it's not unique to get tattooed anymore, right? Like, it used to be unique to get tattooed, but the unique power of tattooing, there's still a unique power to tattooing, which is it can help you become who you want to be, or anchor, places in time that you want to keep with you to your death.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's my take on it. I tend to, I've been asked a couple of times in interviews where people said, "What are your tattoos all about?" And I go, "Look, there's two rules really. I get them from friends, and I never get them covered because they're all good in their own way. Even my worst tattoos are still a memory." And sometimes a bad memory is as good as a good memory because bad memories teach you good lessons in life. When you go, I'm definitely not going to do that again.
Yeah, I'm down with that. That said, I have definitely, lasered some of my shitty old tattoos and covered them up with some pretty awesome stuff. And I do still remember the shit that was underneath them for sure. But I'm looking at a thick ass Guy Aitchison tattoo now. So.
Yeah, well, that's what I ended up doing with my right arm. Was I'd got a tattoo that I didn't like anymore. Didn't really feel like me anymore. I've made that change, and but I'm like, yeah, but I'm changing again now. So actually, my arm that's essentially blacked out, my right arm, was what I used to teach my daughter to tattoo. So that was the first tattoo that she kind of did when she was about 13 or 14. So, but you can still see the lines underneath of the old tattoo. So the thing I like about it is it's all still there. It's just there's another coat of paint over the top of it.
Yeah. That reminds me of that Tony Booth sleeve. I don't know. There's a geometric sleeve that I think it was at one of the tattoo tea parties forever ago. And I was judging, and all of a sudden, there's for best sleeve, there's this like blackout sleeve that's got all this geometry stuff on top, and so there's like shadows, and it looked fucking cool. It won straight up, and it would have
Yeah, I think I remember
without
that. I think I can remember looking at that on Tony's Instagram and going, that black on black is amazing, to do that. It made me think like there's more that can be done with black, actually.
It was hard for people to pick it apart because I was looking at it in real life. I was like, that's in real life. That's sitting there in front of me. Like there's nobody could say. I mean, obviously tattoos age. But on the other hand, I'm looking at him like, I don't know what to say except for that looks fucking sick. It deserved the first place. If somebody tried to do something fresh on that sleeve on an arm, they couldn't have done a better tattoo. It was awesome. So you can do a lot, obviously, with. You can always pull out a lot. I just remember that from Neil Water. I love that guy. Neil's one of my favorite UK guys from back in the day.
Oh, Neil Dallywater. I like Neil a lot. I've got a lot of time for Neil.
Yeah. Absolutely. I remember he wrote an article about the tattoo gathering, and that was one of those like, you know what? I could not have said it better myself.
Beautiful segue into my next question, actually. But before we get to my next question, I also heard a rumour that Neil nearly died at Paradise Tattoo Gathering on a toboggan.
Nearly died as subjective. But yeah, the mountain slides are epic. And there was another fella. Was he from the UK? There was people bumping. There was a year that it definitely got a little rambunctious. I remember getting smashed in. I was, yeah, those toboggans are awesome.
Dude, the moment you said people from the UK and rambunctious, I'm like, yeah, those two correlate, my friend.
That is those slides are the reason why we found that Jimmy Peak as a venue for the tattoo convention.
Oh, really?
Because I remember Derb. This was around that time period, so this was in 2007, and this is right around the same time period as the Tea Party that I'm talking about. I was talking with Derb about trying to bring Hell City to New England. I think Joey's Cap was trying to get him out too, and Derb was like, "Nah, I'm going to Arizona." And but then Derb was like, "I'll help you, run a convention in New England." To which I was like, "Holy shit!" Like I don't know how many other people he says that to, but like uh, I can't say no to that kind of help. Like I mean, there's a lot of other things that have to come into place, but like Derb just said he was going to help run a convention.
So, for the benefit of our listeners, so we're talking about Derb Morrison offering to help you with a thing called the Paradise Tattoo Gathering, which I've attended once and have given a talk at digitally. I appeared as an avatar for 1 year. Do you want to tell me about that? Because I've got some thoughts about it. It's a very unique event in the tattoo calendar. I think when it started, it was more unique because I think some people have took on board what you were doing and have gone, that is actually a really good direction. So Paradise Tattoo Gathering at Jiminy Peak. When is it this year?
So we're not. So this year we're taking a year off. This year,
Okay.
Next year, let's say we've got October 6th to the 8th.
Okay.
Secured for the Paradise Artist Retreat.
Yes.
And so we have a couple of different formats, different events. The Artist Retreat it was like the third year that we started doing events. We did a tattoo gathering in 2008. That was the first one. Then 2009 was the second one, which was, I think, it was the first year that Guy came out. And then we did the 2010 was the first art retreat. Like on 2009, I was like, I'm done. Like I can't do this shit again.
Said every organizer at the end of every convention every year.
Almost every other year. There was like 2 years where I was like, oh, we'll definitely do this again, and then I ate shit that year. I'm like, oh, come on, man. Like, can't we? But your point, yeah, man. Like, when I work with tattoo convention promoters nowadays, half of what I do, I feel like, is I'm not a therapist by any stretch of the imagination, but I have gone through enough conventions where it's like, this is the way that you're going to feel.
Yeah,
you don't want to give up. And yeah, absolutely. Like going into a tattoo convention, and they're definitely. Now I go into events where I'm like, I don't feel like quitting. But yeah, it's.
But hang on a minute, Gabe. Like events are easy, right? It's easy to put on an event. You just get a room, you tell some people about it, right, and then you just put it on. Yeah, it's a piece of cake. Yeah,
and everyone has.
You just count the money.
And everyone has the event's best interests at heart.
Yeah.
Everyone's just like, how can I contribute to an event? The quick bit of advice for tattooers, like when you're canceling on an event, don't talk about the next year, right? Just don't.
Yeah, just don't.
Feel like, hey, I'm canceling on this year, but count me in for next year. I'm not saying that anybody that said that to me, I feel this way, but like if you say that to other convention promoters, you might as well just check yourself off because they don't want to think about next year. They're thinking about this year, and oh man, there's so many tips. The perspective shift is definitely. I definitely try to have enough grace, and I had to learn it. Because there are a lot of agendas.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine the seating plan is worse than putting a wedding together with the amount of artists that like, don't put me near him, don't put me next to her, I don't talk to him, I don't like him, I hate his music. That must be must be a minefield in itself. If you're listening to this and you don't know, this does actually go on where artists will request to not be seated next to another artist. I've only had to do this a couple of times at conventions where I'd had a particularly bad falling out with somebody.
I tussle around with enough people, and the convention will attract enough energy, and that there's people I won't be next to. That said, like I don't think I've ever necessarily had to tell a convention promoter don't put me next to people. And also, there's been times where I've been really stubborn, and I'm like, I don't give a fuck. Put them next to each other, like because those whatever was trying to happen in my head, like the suppliers belong together, or the color realists belong together, or whatever it was that I was trying to put together. I was like, I don't care if they have to be put them together. And my manager was like, dude, don't do that. Like, nah. And I'm like, I don't give a fuck. I got 10,000 other things to do. Like, if they're at my show, they can get along enough together to be next to each other. And then, sure enough, fucking 15 minutes into the show, Brian's like, we're moving them. We're not putting them next to each other. Neither of them are having a good time. And that's when it was like, you know what? I want them both there, but they're just not going to have a good time. And so you got to balance it all out. It's for sure. But this is where like the mission and values really come into play. And this is for like me personally, when I'm working on shit for events, like if we're really here to help inspire people to leave a lasting positive impression that changes people's lives for the better, like that's what it's about, right? Like, and if you're here to make money, well, we all kind of want to make money. Like, we can't do the convention again if we don't make money. If you just tell somebody I can't come, yeah, that's fine. You tell somebody you're going to a convention, and then 3 months before the convention, I'm not sure I can make enough money. Like, that convention promoter does not know if they can make enough money.
It's exactly the same, isn't it? And also for the convention organizer, I'm not sure how many tattooists know that you have to put, for most venues, when you book them, you have to put things like an enormous amount of money up front just to secure the date that you need for that weekend, as
Stupid amounts.
Yeah. And then you've got to start talking about, well, how will we divide the internals of the building? Will we use pipe and drape? Will we use shell scheme? Well, that doesn't come for free. The convention doesn't provide that. And every plug socket in every booth, and in some parts of the world, every sink that's either in a booth or at the end of an aisle, they don't arrive for nothing either. There are companies that turn up and they put them in and they charge you a bill. And for convention organisers, the bills just they mount up and mount up, And I have this conversation as an artist where people say to me, "Why is my booth so expensive?" I'm like, just the plug socket on its own in England is about £85 each. And they go, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, because if you put a plug socket somewhere, you have to have an electrician to make sure that nobody dies, and he's on call for 3 days."
It's nuts. I mean, the budgets. And again, like as I was saying earlier, when I work with convention promoters, for the most part, convention promoters own really big shops or supply companies, or there's enough connections or enough energy that they've not necessarily been pushed into it, but it's they're not getting necessarily into it by accident. But to your point, at the end of the real long-term benefits of like hosting a convention, I found, at least for the types that I run, because I'm not running like get a shit ton of people through the door for lots of money. I'm like, let's go to the middle of nowhere and study the upper crusty snooty parts of our craft, kind of a thing. But sometimes I've lost $20,000-$30,000 at a clip, and if I didn't at the time have a shop where I was like hiring tattooers out of it, it wouldn't have been sustainable. But that said, I was able to hire tattooers that were attracted to going to paint with people in the desert, so that when I lost money on that event, I was able to make it up in other places.
Yeah, I mean, that was the thing I was going to say. I mean, having attended Paradise just the once, the thing that I thought that was really different about that event and what kind of excited me about it was that I didn't feel like I was at a tattoo convention. I really felt like there was a bunch of artists hanging out in this sort of like, to me, it was like a weird, because it's this is at Paradise is held at what is a ski lodge, I guess, a ski resort.
It is, yeah. Ski resort.
But it's got that kind of like weird, like it's not Disney. I don't want to say that kind of thing, but like all the buildings, you can tell that they're put there to look a certain way, and they've got that kind of look. So I'm walking,
it's a family-friendly resort.
Yes, but I'm walking around like an Englishman going, it's kind of like a weird Austrian kind of architecture in the middle of like, East Hampton or something. And I'm like, what's kind of going on here? But then I got chatting with people, and everybody's, walking around. They've got like folders and clipboards, and they're asking artists questions and, and getting feedback. And then I'm seeing people going off to these sort of seminars, because me, typically I have a date that I'm going to do in the calendar. I haven't done any research. I turn up. I generally don't even know what airport I'm going to land in. And then I just go do this thing and learn about it while I'm there. So, for me, my impression of it was there was a whole load of artists. And, and this is 15 years ago when there weren't so many education-based events. People that are just really hungry to learn, not really pre-internet, but maybe we weren't sharing so much on the web yet. and it was and remains a really, really different vibe. It's something that, you know, every year that I've missed it, I kind of go, I wish I could get there again. You know, I could need to make a hole in my schedule to go and do that, you know. But, you know, I mean, the last few years have just been me. I just didn't want to do any traveling, but I'm sort of back into that idea now. So I couldn't.
Oh yeah, it's nice.
Dude, there's only so many airplane sandwiches that one man can eat in his life before you need a break from it for a little while. Because I've been doing the on the road thing since I was about 17. So I kind of got to a point where I went, do you know what? I might just stay home for a couple of years.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, I watch a lot of artists go through all their. I mean, again, we're old enough now that we watch people through decades. So we can watch people have decades of, like, you know, getting into the scene and elbowing their way in and letting everybody know who they are, and then another 10 years of like, oh wait, that's not quite what I wanted. I wanted to just like work with my clients and like tattoo on people, and then get back into it 10 years later and be like, oh wait a minute, actually, you know, I don't need all the spotlight, but I like a little bit. And you know, so for the tattoo gathering, yeah, I mean, definitely want to credit, you know, my wife. You know, she's a teacher. She teaches infants. She gets, you know, the brains as they're forming, and you know, creates environments, you know, so that you know, they could, you know, expand their brains and get dialed in. So when I was thinking about, you know, why would we run an event, or what do we have to contribute to events? And to your point, I mean, we weren't the first first event to have lots of seminars. You know, there were, you know, again, Guy was teaching at some of the, you know, teaching seminars at events and whatnot. And, you know, the APT, you know, has always kind of been, you know, into having seminars. Certainly, I'm not going to discredit what we kind of added to the mix, right? And there were no other tattoo gatherings at the time. I know, because when we were coming up with the names of like the different things that we could call it, you know, tattoo gathering was like, oh, that's pretty fucking hippie, you know. And you know, it was too hippie for us. But we couldn't come up with another better alternative name, right? And so there we go. And part of what I learned is that you create the name, right? Like, or you again, like Tony Sugaro named his shop Stinky Monkey, you know. But it's been so awesome for so long that like Stinky Monkey is a fucking great brand. Right?
Well, it's the same.
So anyways,
That's the same as band names. Like if you take, you know, some band names and go like that's a really great band, but actually if you say, you know, you take the name Def Leppard, it's spelt wrong. It's a bit silly. If you just take it outside of the fact that they were one of the biggest bands of the 80s, you know, the biggest ticket draw, and you know, made a couple of the most important hard rock albums of all time. And then all of a sudden, you know, Def Leppard doesn't sound so silly, you know?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Branding is crazy. It really is. And but yeah, so but with the gathering, right, and the focus on education, we probably have. And when I look at the schedule, you know, one of the things about it that is unique is that you know, when I'm creating the schedule, like it's jam packed. And you know, I'm looking at like most normal people would put like 40, you know, events, you know, into, you know, it's 4 days. For the most part, I think next year we're doing 3, but you know, for the full on tattoo gatherings, they're 4 days. With like, I think we have like 3 different seminar rooms and a stage. And then sometimes we'll do outdoor events, right? So there might be like something going on for plein air, then there's like something awesome happening on the stage, and then there'll be like 3 seminars going on at the same time.
I'm sure one morning when I was walking up to my booth, I'm sure Derb was either involved in or doing a yoga class at about 8:30 in the morning, and I was like, I'm looking through this window I'm stood there with a cup of coffee and a hangover because I was still drinking in those days, going, who could do yoga at this time of the day?
You know, I always end up hitting the early birds. You know, I'm an early riser myself, so when I'm walking around tattoo conventions at 7 o'clock in the morning,
Yeah.
You know, I see them, right, and there's always enough. And again, that's the beauty of tattooing, right? It really does transcend, you know, all the cultures, all the tax brackets, all the political persuasions. You know, although maybe I do try to filter out for positivity. You know, I try to be as tolerant as I possibly can be, but like, you know, we can't tolerate intolerance or Nazi bullshit or you know, or sexism or racism, that, you know, that kind of stuff. You know, and again, this is one of the things about our convention, right? Like, by now it's pretty self-policing. there'll usually be an asshole or two that makes it out to the mountain, but like their studio mates will take care of them, and they'll be like, "Oh, Gabe, I'm sorry if you heard anything about what happened yesterday, but we already got them off the mountain."
Or did they get them off the mountain? Was it like Yellowstone when they take them to the train station?
Yeah, right. Like all of a sudden, you didn't need to tell me that because no, it's but kind of to the point, right? Like the idea is that by the time that you're out there, like you don't want to have anybody bringing you down.
Of course, but I mean, my experience of that, I mean, it's the Paradise Tattoo Gathering that I attended was the only place when I've stood in a queue for coffee and exchanged a book with a fellow tattooist. I'd got to the end of a book that I was reading, and the guy in the queue behind me noticed, and he went, "Did you just finish the book?" And I was like, "Yeah." He said, "I've just finished this one. Do you want to swap? Is it any good?" And I literally, and then I kind of stood there getting my coffee and walking away and saying thanks, and we had a little chat. And as me and Karen were walking up the hill to where we were for the day, I said, I love that. I wish there were more conventions that were like that. It was okay to read books there. It was like, you're okay to be a reader. It's allowed.
It's encouraged.
Yeah, I mean that kind of brings me on to the education side of things and creating, educational spaces and pushing things forward. Brings me on to the other, because Gabe does a lot of things, right? So we've got a few things to cover. So I'm going to kind of, I'll kind of try and flag these up as we go past. So Paradise is an education-focused event. It's a very different feeling event. And then one of the things that you're currently doing is Tattoo Now. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Is Tattoo Now part of the reinventing the tattoo thing that you do with Guy Aitchison?
Yeah, other way around. Like I work at Guy's service, in service of Guy. So I help with the reinventing, technology and booking, and then Guy is obviously like the driving force, behind reinventing.
So, for the benefit of my listeners, if you don't know the book Reinventing the Tattoo, for those of you who've listened to previous episodes, you will have heard myself and Jason Butcher discussing how important reinventing the tattoo was to both of us as artists wanting to learn. And so that Guy Aitchison wrote this brilliant book. And as far as I understand now, it's a website now, right? And it's become like a whole big thing of its own. Am I correct in thinking that?
Yeah. So, to your point, my wife was like one half of my educational, not fascination, but inspiration. Like I sucked at school. I'm a self-taught computer programmer. Yeah. So like all of that stuff came really foreign to me. My wife, showed me, she didn't teach me, like I was watching what she was doing. I was like, oh, wait, human brains are the thing, right? And here's like, I think I was alluding to, like, I'm poor white trash. Right? I grew up and I'm like, how do I take 2 pennies and turn them into a nickel? How do I take fucking a nickel and turn it into a quarter? How do I take 2 quarters? Like, and that's how I got into my computer stuff. I'm like, oh, I could like manipulate the computer to have a really strong return on investment, right? And again, not in a return on investment, and like I'm not like a VC capitalist who's like putting in millions to get my return on investment, but I'm like, how do I put in the most amount of energy and creative energy to get the biggest? I do want to get the biggest bang for my buck or for my time. And what I was realizing is, I was like, education, man, like it's not a zero-sum game. Like you could teach somebody something and then they know it, know it, then they teach people and then they all get better at it and teach you something. And then you're fucking better, because you were giving, things away or exchanging information. Sometimes you're not giving away stuff, but you're, exchanging information and, and well, I guess also politically, one of my influences, I was like, you can't, all the parties are the same. Whatever, the Tories and the Labor, the Democrats and the Republicans are all the same. And the guy, my buddy, Dave Furlow, he's actually an expatriate in Surrey. He was like, if I don't know exactly what he said, but it's something to the effect of, if I wanted to rule the world, I might teach people that they couldn't make any change, then they don't even count. Then they don't count.
Interesting.
Right? They're off the board.
Yeah.
And then we could, go to work on manipulating people. Anyways, main point. Oh, what was the main point? I forgot about that. Now I'm thinking about global politics and
you see, you fell down that politics rabbit hole, And down there lies madness, my friend. We were talking about Guy and reinventing the tattoo and education.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, okay. And education, right? So wife was my one influence, and then Guy was obviously my, I was already really digging his tattoos, but I don't tattoo. So like the early reinventing stuff, that didn't attract me at all because I wasn't learning how to tattoo. But when I wanted, to create an environment that he might want to come, and Michelle might want to come and teach at, um, he was very inspirational for Paradise, and and then when he landed there, man, and I just have to say, like, as far as working with tattooers of exceptional, influence, and he's got a, everyone's got a, if a lot of people, if they try to get a hold of a guy and they can't get a hold of a guy, they might, you know, be a little sour because they couldn't. But like, he's so generous with his time, right? Like when he has availability for people and he's available for people, he's like insanely generous, and he's an open book, and he goes out of his way to be as clear as he could possibly be to educate. And even still, it's 20 years or 25 years since he's been doing reinventing, and kind of to your point, I guess your question was about, it went from the book and now it's this online thing. Yeah, he has a videographer, that he's tattooing, so they record the tattoos. They have still frames and they have arrows that point to like this spot does this. This is what I'm doing on this spot. And also he's got guest artists, that he works with. So he's always been really big on collaborating with people. From back in the day, he's always collaborated, and so likewise, they'll come in and they'll teach really awesome whatever it is that they're specializing.
I mean, I couldn't recommend it more strongly. Having read the book, the first chapter of Reinventing the Tattoo is still information that I use every single day. I think it's quite possibly the best lesson in tattooing I've ever had. And I read it and was like, this is it. Some of it confirms that the thing you're doing is okay to do that. And that was really good for me because the stuff that I was doing, my friends had never seen this kind of tattooing that were teaching me, and were like, I'm not sure if you're allowed to do things like this, Paul. And I'm like, well, it seems to work, right? And so to read Guy's book when I did was really important for me because it said, effectively, look, these are a few loose rules. You can do this, and here are some amazing ways of making sure your tattoos are on the body straight or not if you intend to do that. It taught me about intent and what are you intending to do with your art and where's it got to go, and you need to think about that. And also, while you're doing that, you need to play this kind of music in your studio because it's much more relaxing. That kind of stuff,
Well, and I think it's easy to forget that he took a lot of heat.
Really?
Like that,
Wow.
Well, for revealing the secrets. Again, for one, he took a lot of heat, for one, he took a lot of heat for like, you're doing tattoos that don't look like tattoos.
Well, I know how he feels.
Right, exactly. Same. I'm sure that you run into the same. Because you're busting out of that normal style.
Yeah.
And then who knows? I'm not saying necessarily with Guy, but like with the people that are straying from that tradition, like who knows? Maybe the first 2 or 3 years of it isn't the best, right? Because you are still trying to figure out how the skin's working and exactly how the contrast is, and everyone's just getting better as artists.
Yeah.
Anyways, so one of the other things with Guy too is that just as a person, as an artist, like he collaborates with people so he can learn from them, right?
Yeah.
And so that he's humble enough that he's still always seeking knowledge, and he also pays attention to his clients. Like anyways, I guess the main point is reinventing is amazing. Guy is amazing as both technically.
Yeah, definitely go check it out. Well, I mean, one of the most technically adept tattooists around, and most of the stuff that we look at and take for granted, Guy invented half of it, or a good chunk of it, And I think that it's worth mentioning that for the guys that are pioneers. I have this conversation with Simone and Volko at the Buena Vista Tattoo Club, and they've shown me, prototype trash polka stuff from the late 90s. So they, and it's 10 or 11 years before they really get to the point where, you see that for what it is, what it eventually became. But they spent nearly a decade figuring out where they were going to go, and anybody who's prepared to burn, a decade of their life to benefit everybody else, I think deserves a massive round of applause, because a lot of the time, the first guy up the path, if you'll excuse the pun, it takes them a lot more effort if you're the first person figuring out how to do these things, and then the second person up the road can copy you to start with and then go from there. That's why, in this day and age, there are 7-year-old kids playing all of Van Halen 1. But Eddie Van Halen had to figure that stuff out, right? It's why it took him a little bit longer,
Yeah. What do they say? We're in America here, so everything's violent. We say the first person through the door gets shot.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
To your point about the learning, right? So this is where, and it's like this across the board, right? So nowadays, tattooing, right? Like everyone can learn on YouTube, or not everyone can quite learn on YouTube, but like there's almost everything on YouTube. The problem is like sorting through it all, right? You can find a Bob Tyrrell seminar on YouTube somewhere, but like then you find all these other motherfuckers, that are just teaching crap. That's why I could call them.
The one thing that I would say is if you're out there and you're trying to navigate your way through YouTube and teach yourself to tattoo, one of the biggest indicators is if somebody is trying to, before they've even shown you anything useful, trying to sell you something. Or trying to, I dyed my client's hair blue so that they could do this. Just steer clear of all that kind of stuff, because the educators generally are the people that are not really interested in the monetization. I think the monetization becomes a byproduct of just telling lots of people shit that's important and really useful to them, right? It comes from something else. I never got the impression that reinventing the tattoo was a commercial thing. It actually just felt like I'd been given a pamphlet by a tattooist. It kind of felt that way, And I think that's important, because you can tell that when you're reading it, the focus is on education, not monetization in the first instance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I say, we've all got to make money. There's nothing wrong with making money. But if you, and I suppose this is kind of conventions and art careers are like this. If you focus on the money first, you'll always fail. If you focus on doing something really cool or really useful, or having an amazing event that everybody's going to love, then usually the money will follow. Not always straight away, but we hope that it will eventually follow.
But it's also changing, right? And again, nowadays it's hard not to go 2 weeks without an awesome tattooer being like, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to stick it out, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree. For the most part, you do really good stuff, and the money will follow. But I think that these days we have to be a little bit more attentive, right? And with tattooers, especially, like there's so many now.
Yeah.
That I was thinking about all the different initiatives that we would do. When I'm thinking about technology, and tattooing, it's like we used to do so much, 10 years ago, and we were able to make millions of dollars in tattoos doing it. Like nowadays, you kind of have to do all that stuff just to do a regular business.
All that added value from back in the day has become the norm now, hasn't it? It's the standard. You've got to be a great photographer. You've got to be a great marketeer. You've got to pay attention to all of your social media. You need a great website. You need to communicate with people. You need to make all these ancillary beyond tattooing just to get above the billboard.
Unless you're an employee, right? Like in America, some places you could be an employee, in which case that actually becomes the job of the business.
Yes.
Yeah, I was talking to a supply company owner 6 months ago, right? We were just talking about how it's changing, right? Like, and it stemmed from like, do I have to be a TikTok star now? And again, not from him. He was the supplier. Yeah. He's a tattooer, but he was talking about his tattooer customers, and it's like, well, no, you don't necessarily need to be a TikTok dancer, but and then I guess, but I'm like, but you have to like take care of your business and shit. He's like, well, wait, are tattooers expected to be marketers? To which I'm like, well, if you're an independent contractor or a renter, well, absolutely yes. Like by definition, you have all of the job definitions of every business owner.
I think personally, but I worked in marketing for 10 years, so it would appear simple to me, is that You just make a product that you really believe in and tell people why you believe in it and find other people that are interested in it as well. The trick is going through all of these various platforms to find out where's the pond that you need to fish in for for clients, because not like TikTok would be useless for me. It's just not the kind of place that my audience would hang out in. I'm actually better off putting my work in graphic design magazines and stuff like that, and you have to think about that and go, there's loads of ponds. Which one are you going to fish in? What are you looking for? What are you using as bait? That's your artwork. Who's going to like that and where are you going to put it? But that in itself, I think of it as being very simple, but I guess for most people, that's a minefield just on its own. Well, how do I do that? How do I identify an audience and then market to them? And then that starts feeling weird for creatives as well, the idea of having to market what you do. But because I think most creative people just go, well, I just make pictures and people should just like them. And it's like, it's not that simple anymore, unfortunately.
It's not. Well, and like sales is a particular skill. Like leading is a particular skill. There's all these different skills, and that's where I was, kind of saying, like but as a tattooer, if you're your own business, you're an independent contractor, like that's what you signed up for. So if you don't have somebody else to fill in for the role, it's you. That's you could find a tattoo shop that has an owner who's like, you know what, I'm going to supply the marketing, I'm going to supply this, the same, environment, so that everything's cool. I'm going to supply the financial structure so that nothing's going to get fucked with. All you have to do, this is the way I ran my shop. Like all you have to do is show up for consultations, do the tattoos, and then work a benefit day a year. Maybe hit a group meeting once a month, and then we're good.
I pretty much I run my shop as a little anarchic commune. So I don't have any employees. Everybody's self-employed. Everybody's a key holder. But as part of the deal, I worked in marketing. So I'm like, well, if I'm going to teach you tattooing or help you with your tattoo career, then I can help teach you what you need to do. We just need to sit and have some conversations and stuff like that. And I'm like, if I'm going to sit and have this hour of conversation, then that's an hour that I'm not working. So could you do some work and give me some money from it and in return? And that seems to be a fair exchange to me,
Yeah. I got sued by the state of Massachusetts to hire on every tattooer as an employee. So, we ran as independent contractors for a while, but then when the state stepped in, it was like, oh, okay. But, it wasn't horrible, and it's just a different mentality, right? Like, so eventually, after we had, the tattooers, they were employees, we ended up attracting tattooers who wanted to be part of a team, like people who wanted to go to a monthly, check-in meeting with everybody and have a one-on-one with their manager.
Yeah, we call our monthly check-in meeting going paintballing or something like that. I normally come up with some nonsensical thing to do. Like, shall we do that while we talk about the tattoo shop and stuff like that, and the things I need to do? I like to not be the boss as much as possible, because it feels weird. I sometimes have to put the boss hat on, and I don't enjoy it. But there's no one else to do it. Like you say, if there isn't anyone, it's your job. if you can't find anyone else,
you could still be a pirate ship. But pirate ships had all hands on deck meetings, right? And if you didn't show up for the all hands on deck meeting, what the fuck do you think happened to the pirate who didn't show up?
Yeah. What would the name of that pirate be? But it wouldn't be Blackbeard. It would just be John not here or something like that, wouldn't it? It'd be a crap pirate name.
John off the plank.
John off the plank. So listen, bring me up to the latest thing, because we've just hung out just recently in Venice, where you're involved in the Icons and Prodigies event out there.
Oh yeah.
What's your involvement there then? Because I'm not clear on it, because you invited me and then I said no and then I said yes, and you very kindly, moved a couple of people over and squeezed me into the convention at the last minute. So thank you very much for that. But
of course.
What's your involvement there?
So I'm helping Alex, right? So the Icons and Prodigies is Alex's brainchild. Alicio helps him from Rome over there in Italy, and then I help him from here in America. So again, I keep my eye out for the right people. I'm part of the invite list, but like I said, really, to talk about it in depth, Alex is definitely something you should get on your list.
That's for the
Now, what I
benefit
can
of our
say
listeners. That's Alex Di Pass, who's a very, very famous Italian artist, good mate of mine, and he will be on the show as soon as I can pin him down. Because
awesome.
one of the problems of having a podcast with lots of busy tattoo artists is that they have very little time to sit and talk to somebody for an hour, and so pinning everyone down, which is why there's no release schedule for this show. I just release them when I can get people to talk to me, because it just makes more sense, you know what I mean? And rather than go, I'm going to do this every week, because I'm like, I can't. It will be too stressful for me trying to pin, because I'm difficult as it is to find time myself. So I have to also allow for the fact that a lot of my friends will spend 3 days getting back to me on text message, which is standard for tattooists. You know it is.
Oh, well, and to your point, Alex, he's got a tremendous amount going on. He definitely has, a lot of great help. Stefania, and Mark, like he's got a good crew.
Yeah.
To help him, but he's definitely a wicked visionary. So the Icons and Prodigies is it's somewhat related to the ITF, the International Tattoo Federation.
Yeah.
Really what he's interested in is through the academy that he's working with and his own campus projects, really wants to help educate tattooers.
Yeah.
And part of the academy that he's been working with, the students are like, they're illustration students. They're like going to like art school, and they're like, they're passing, there's a barrier to entry that, is make sure that the people that are, by the time they're tattooing on like the fake skins and learning tattoo design elements and whatnot, they're on the right path. And so, I guess main point is, Alex has really got an eye for elevating, for elevating the industry or the craft.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a true belief that this is an art form that should be taken seriously. He believes it in his soul, and I agree with him. That, and he's very very passionate about moving the art form to that place. There's no reason why our stuff shouldn't be taken as seriously as stuff hanging in galleries, because we put as much effort into it, and the skill of the artist is just as high, which I wholeheartedly agree with. We just. We're kind of waiting for the art world to catch up with us and go, these guys can draw,
Well, and I think that's when he's, what he's investing his time and his money into, right? Like, so then again, for the Icons and Prodigies, the Crystal Needle Award that happened at the casino in Venice there, right? It is kind of like the Emmys or the Grammys.
It was in,
right?
Did you know this? That was held in the casino from Casino Royale, the James Bond movie.
I'm sure. Yeah, it's the oldest.
I didn't think I was going to get let in, because when I got off the plane, I got a message from Alex saying, "Don't forget your penguin suit." And I went, "I've just landed in Venice." I actually do own a tuxedo, long story, but it was back home in Birmingham. So I had to run around trying to find something that I thought might make me look slightly human. And then these wonderful people, they just they walked me in, said, "Oh, come on in, sir." And they gave Karen a glass of wine. They gave me a glass of flavoured water. And we were like, oh, well, that was nice. I thought they were going to turn me away. And it was beautiful in there. What a place.
Unmatched, right? And again, and that, that's what, so it's a little bit, it's definitely, I'm trying to come up with like the precise word, not flamboyant, it's a little bit peacocky. It's a show, right? But again, part of it is it's celebrating the best. Who else? Like if we have a board of tattooers here, who else is more qualified to like pick the best of the tattooers?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you pretty much have, everybody kind of covered.
The way it works for the benefit of you at home, the icons. Of which I was one. I was very pleased. I think they just put me in the icon category because I'm too old to be a prodigy at this point. But the icons vote for their favourite prodigies. So I was sent a link. I think you sent me the link to a website and go, can you vote on these things? And I was looking at the work of all the artists and thinking, Jesus Christ, how do you pick a winner from this? They're all really good. I mean, the standard of work that is coming next scares me to death.
And therein lies like part of what the transition that's kind of happening, right? Like the the low bar of what's acceptable is just going to start getting, and it's going to go way up. I guess we started to talk about it earlier about the access to information.
Yeah.
And I was talking about, it's across the board, like even like the chess people, right? They used to have to wait for the chess magazine to come out so that they could go through the games and figure out what was going on, right? Like you used to have to wait for the tattoo magazine to come out so that you could look at the new, tattoo that guy did and be like, how the fuck did he do that?
Yeah.
But like now, the whole world knows the next day.
Well, a funny thing about that, right? This happened in the shop just recently. I was clearing some stuff out of my booth because it's the middle of the year, so I do a little cleanup of stuff that's lying around that I'm not using. And I'm in the very top of my booth, out the way, I found a 4-volume set of black and grey tattoos that I think is from about 2006. It's a huge set of coffee table books. The things, they're like cornerstones. They're that big, and they're full of what would have been considered in 2006, somewhere between 2006 and 2010, of what would have been considered world-class tattooing from that time. And myself and the black and grey artist in my studio, Lucas, we were sitting having a cup of coffee, looking at them and going, you know what? Some of this stuff now, it would be acceptable year one apprentice work. And beyond that, you'd go, look, man, you got some work to do. And I'm like, and we were both saying, look how far we've come in what, 10 years or 15 years. And now, 15 years ago, if you were at the top of your game 15 years ago and you didn't learn another thing, you would be below a year one apprentice now. And I think that's a testament to how fast tattooing is evolving and how much, for all the people that complain about it, the access to information. Okay, it might have brought a lot of bad actors into the world of tattooing, but we'll soon, eventually they'll go away. But what it has brought in is a stable or a pool of talent that it's undeniable how good they are. I mean, when we were in Venice, a couple of months ago, I mean, you couldn't look in any direction in that building and not see a tattoo that was just mind-blowing.
A lot of that is a testament to the work that Alex has been doing with his teaching there in Italy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think all of the people teaching in the industry, I think this is going on. This is a combination of what Alex is doing, of what Guy is doing, of what Paradise does. It's all of that, isn't it? It's all everything is incrementally getting better because there's just access to all this, because people are more open to giving away the secrets, as it were. We call it education. It's like, let's just teach everybody to be good, right?
Yeah. No, I absolutely.
I don't understand why in this day and age you shouldn't have your experience of going into a tattoo shop and the guy not being particularly good at what he's doing. There should be no such thing as a bad tattoo. At this point, everybody should be good, right? I don't understand. If the information's there, how can you be bad at it? And if you are that bad at it, why are you doing it? Because
Sure. Sorry. I was just saying that the Icons of Prodigies deck is a little bit stacked with, the Alex's graduates.
Yeah.
To your point, and he'll be the first to also let know, the influence is far and wide. And there's Silvano, and there's, a lot of other people in Italy that are teaching. And there's a lot of people. I mean, I guess kind of to your point earlier, like, at one point Reinventing was like one of the main, books. Now, like, you can't surf for like 30 seconds on Instagram without having like 3 people advertise their course to you. And, some of them are pretty good. They're not all good, but like some of them, there's good people that are doing some really good.
Some of them are really, really good, and we're getting there. So I've got a final question for you, Gabe, because I don't want to keep you for too long, because we can talk for hours. But I am aware that you've got stuff to do. My kind of USP with this podcast is that tattooing is the last thing that we talk about. All right. And so literally it's the last thing I'm going to do, but I'm not going to talk about it. So I'm going to ask everybody this same question. And we'll sign out with a monologue from yourself. What, in your opinion, is the most important issue facing tattooing right now?
Okay, on the fly, taking it seriously enough, right? So I think we talked about it earlier, like tattooing allows tattooers to help people become the best versions of themselves. And, that's real heavy, and also we could help people become the worst versions of them, or you can, right? I don't do the tattoos, but tattooers can help people become the worst. And you could do, so for me, as it scales, as tattooing now has become accessible for everybody, and as it's scaling, being just really deliberate to tattoo on people in a positive environment with positive imagery that's going to help them become who they want to be to become their best selves, right? Again, I guess my mission is, right, it's not just, well, again, it's what I latch onto when I'm going through my storms. Like, tattooers help. You can leave the longest lasting positive impression on humanity possible through tattooing, right? Like, and so as far as like, are there too many tattooers, too few tattooers, education, this, like, I just think that like ultimately, as like now half of America's tattooed, I don't know what Europe's like, but like as the population just gets more and more tattooed, if tattooers make it a point to like deliver experiences that are positive to their clients, then that actually is, I think, what could help, humanity become better people.
Amen. Leave a lasting and positive influence on the world. Leave the world a better place. Leave your clients better people than when you started. I think that's a great sentiment to have. Gabe, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, mate. Thank you for agreeing to do this with me and for taking time out of your day to have a chat with me. And yeah, thank you very much, mate. I appreciate it.
I've always loved your voice. I've loved your thoughts. It's great to have more smart people that read books around.
I'm a reader.
You've got a unique vision, a unique voice, and you always have. So, and you're a geek. You understand geeky shit. It's like when you're outside of the norm, it's like, am I outside of the norm because I'm right?
Yeah.
Or because I'm wrong?
Do you know what? I'm still trying to figure that out, my friend. I'm still trying to figure that out. Only time will tell.
As long as you're not in the norm, that's what counts. As long as you're outside of the fucking truth.
Gabe, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, mate. Thank you for agreeing to do this. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll speak to you soon, mate. Take care.
Thank you. You got to click the button, so I'm going
to click the button right now.